it seems appropriate because women are actually in positions of leadership. As you heard, I chair the Council of Women World Leaders, which is a club, if you like, of current and former women elected presidents and prime minister. There are 36 of us in the club, and indeed Lady Caroline to join. Want to join the club? But we have more recent women in very high office and former office, and women are involved as ministers in governments now, and women are involved in heads of agencies, very distinguished heads of agencies, and women are involved in business and in the academia, and very notably, of course, at the local community level, women leaders. So we have tried and put this into an organisation and tell you a little bit about it. We tried to show that if women leaders can act collectively from different perspectives, that we can try to make the voice of women, and especially of gender-based violence, more visible, and try and address that. So earlier this month, I went with 7 other women leaders to eastern Chad to listen to women and listen to those in the camp, male chiefs, etc., but particularly focus on the women. And I think it's worth telling you who the women were. I was particularly pleased that 5 of them were leading African women. And one of them, Diop from Senegal, the Director General of FAM Africa Solidarity, has had a lot of experience of the area formula of the Security Council, getting women's voices out. We were joined by the Honourable Asha Hagi Amin from Somalia. I had met her at a meeting in Nairobi not very long ago, last July, where she was talking from the heart about Somalia. But when I wrote to her and asked her if she would join us, she immediately said yes, which in a way is kind of telling of giving, and she was a remarkable person on the visit, because everybody in the camps knew who she was, knew what she stood for, and it was very impressive. Lucindy Kanyoro had just finished 2 terms as Secretary of YWCA based in Geneva, and was supposed to be on holiday before she took up a major job in a foundation here in the United States, in the Packard Foundation. But she came and joined us. Somebody I didn't know, but she was a big star on the bill, Kijo, whom some of you may know, a singer from Benin. And then Ngozi Konjo-Iweala, the former finance minister of Nigeria and foreign minister. The who were not from Africa were Dr. Herta Dibler, who was Minister of Justice under Schroeder and is now chair of the Committee on Human Rights of the Bundestag Parliament, a very fine, outspoken woman, and Jane Wales, who is President of the World Affairs Council of Northern California and co-founder of the Global Philanthropy Forum, and myself. And there's a link between 3 of us. I had a big shock recently, though looking around this company I feel more at home, when I was invited to become an elder. And it's obviously a great honour as well to join the group Nelson Mandela and Sebastian Michel were invited to bring together. And Jane Wales acts as one of the interim co-directors of the elders, and Ngozi is one of the advisors of the elders. So we linked our visit to Chad with a visit that will take at the end of this month, 30th of December, and into the first week of October, of other elders, Archbishop Tutu, President Carter, Grasa Michel himself, and he will go to Khartoum, and then they will go to Darfur. And President Carter has a particularly good relationship with President al-Bashir, and is going to try and use that relationship to link with the... And I don't want to really spend too long on what we were doing. We went, but because we went as a group of women leaders, the women opened their hearts to us. They weren't helpless victims. They really knew what they wanted, and the priority was security, but they also wanted their voices on the table. They wanted women trained as part of policing in the camps. They wanted to be part of the peace negotiations, and they wanted the discussions at the UN level, such as the level contact group today, to very much have their thinking and their message in mind. And this initiative, if you like, of women leaders seeking to and then bring out those voices and link with those women and highlight them in the access we have to other arenas. This links with the thinking behind a forum called the Women Leaders Interfaith Forum, WLIF. WLIF is almost impossible. We started with WILF, and now I think we're WIL if. The world will change if, and that's about where we are. And WILF, with a number of other organisations, has planned an international women leaders global security summit here in New York from the 15th to 17th of September. And it's going to look at security issues, state security, also human security, climate change as one of the issues. And not only have a conference in itself at a very high level, sitting presidents and women prime ministers coming, and heads of agencies and others, and academia, and 75 women leaders, but also have afterwards what we're calling a diplomatic force, a commitment of women to band together in the future, to stay together on various issues. One commitment we have made is to the elected woman president of Africa, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia. She has a plan during 2008 of encouraging empowerment of women and economic development. And we're going to link on various projects and try and coordinate and stay with her. And she's planning a big summit in Monrovia. She wants to plan it in January 2009. And I met her at the senior retreat of the Secretary General, a dinner together. The others went off with the Secretary General. And I said to her, January 2009, because there will be the new President of the United States, and we both knew that that would not so early. I said I would come back to Barbara Ward. I was invited to give the first Barbara Ward lecture, public lecture, and I thought to myself, she in her time was such a wonderful leader through her writings, and I suppose in particular through her book Only One Earth. She was the, if I put it in these terms, I don't know if you'd feel offended, the Al Gore of her day. And I thought to myself, if she was around now, she would be linking all her thinking with the trends of climate change. So, in fact, I dared to try and do some thinking on change and justice, and gave a paper in Chatham House on that. And I quoted her at the end of it. I said, I took a passage from Only One Earth, where Barbara Ward said, "We have forgotten to be good guests, how to walk lightly on the earth as other creatures do." And I thought that was a very nice way of summing up how heavy and damaging our footprint has become. And I'm going to conclude by my drawing together in this reflection on the role of the North-South Roundtable and where we are now. I'd like to sort of take a 60-year span on things, which is very relevant to a thinking that a number of us are involved in. Almost 60 years ago, during 1947, a small group of eminent jurists came together under Eleanor Roosevelt. It's why they came together. They came together because of the shock to the global system. There have been 2 world wars, a Holocaust, dropping of nuclear bombs on Japanese citizens, and the beginning of the Cold War. It was a very fearful time. And we got that vision. And I think forward, there is no time in my life that is more like then than now. Because now we have terrible divides, ideological divides, poverty divides. We have nuclear proliferation right back on the front burner and possible links to a dirty bomb. And we have climate change and the challenges of meeting that. And we're about to, starting on the 10th of December this year, mark the anniversary of the Universal Declaration, leading up to the anniversary day, the 10th of December 2008. And that's a bit personal too, if I may say so, because when I became UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in November 1997, I took up the mantle of small office, which was a little bit demoralised, which had a huge mandate and lots of problems, and there was a small working group already in place in the office, and it was working to mark the 50th anniversary in 1998 of the Universal Declaration. And I noted that they looked at the 40th anniversary and kind of used some of them and built on them. And I've been reflecting recently that there wasn't that much difference between marking the 40th anniversary of the Universal Declaration and marking the 50th anniversary. But there is an absolutely enormous difference between marking the 50th anniversary and marking the 60th anniversary. But it's a difference in two senses. One is very negative, and you're all nodding because you're thinking, as I am, about the terrible attacks of 9/11, post-9/11, the divides, the Muslim world, fundamentalism in different parts of the world, and so on. But the positive is that the means of communication are dramatically better now than they were in 1998. And what we need to do is to go back to what the Universal Declaration was about. Yes, governments and the United Nations, etc., have a great responsibility, but the Universal Declaration spoke to us. And I'm just going to read that part of it where in Paris, in December 1948, the General Assembly adopted. They said, therefore, the General Assembly proclaims the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to be that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms. Now, I do remember a glorious moment while I was serving as High Commissioner, and I got the Guinness Book of Records, because it is the most translated document in the world, and I think something like 320 or so, or maybe more versions are on the website of OHCHR. But it is not the most read these days. If you go out and talk to the average person in New York, they may vaguely have heard of it, but they certainly haven't read it. And that's true of most of the States, it's true of an awful lot of Europe. So we have this birthright of values. Now is an opportunity. I'm glad to say that there was good discussion at the team retreat of the Secretary General in Turin, and Secretary General himself will be coming. I hope Anne Benjamin and Gull and UNICEF will be here in New York. Louise Arbour will be in Geneva. I also talked to Honvia. He's going to, and it's sort of it's a year with two bookends. So we use the 10th of December this year for a kind of call to take it personally, every individual, every organ of society. And 2008 will be the reckoning. We, in Realising Rights, are taking a particular interest in the business community. I was at a meeting the other day in San Francisco of the Business Leaders Initiative on Human Rights. These corporations are prepared to engage in a major promoting of the Universal Declaration with their employees and down the supply chain, but also more broadly, because they realised with John Ruggies' mandate now that they have to accept an appropriate responsibility. So I think we have an opportunity. And I'll end with Eleanor Roosevelt's own words, because they're very familiar to us. I'll paraphrase them. I don't think I can remember them totally accurately, but they're so well known that we can almost do a chorus. Remember when she said that if human rights are to matter at all, they must matter in small places close to home, so small that you cannot see them on any maps of the world. And then she said that if they're going to matter there, it will take concerted citizen action to uphold them, or we will have the kind of world that unfortunately we have 50 years later. And I feel that there's an opportunity for a kind of soft power recentering human rights. And I want to say, in a north-south roundtable context, the most important thing is to hear young people in Asia, young people in Africa, young people in Latin America, women's groups, those working with children, those poverty issues. And we're trying to get GCAP, the Global Call Against Poverty, and Civicus will be joining with the elders in South Africa, with some of my colleagues, and we'll be trying to urge that this is, it's time for the world to recapture the values that are our birthright, the birthright of every child, Article 1. All humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and to try and get back into central stage. And it's, I think, a way of trying to redress some of the harm that has been done since we marked the 50th anniversary. Thank you very much.